Okay, welcome back to the channel. Now, after last week's insane crankbait video, I thought I'd share a more ordinary session from the beach. Now, you're still going to see a limit caught, but it was definitely a grind. The relentless south wind is taking a toll on the fluke bite for sure. So here I'm starting off the day with the jerkbait, but quickly realized that the bigger fish were in no mood to chase given the frigid water temperature. So out came the 1/4 ounce single jig tipped with the 6-inch jerk shad for the rest of this trip. Yeah, definitely not the size we're looking for. So here I do start off with the spinner blade attachment, and most of the fish you'll see caught that day came off the jerk shad spinner blade combo. But I will get into a scenario where you wouldn't want to use the blade later in this video. So still a short, but a healthy short, so we're getting warmer. As I mentioned before, the jerkbait and crankbait are highly situational, and if that's how you want to catch fluke for the entire day, that's perfectly fine. But if you just want to catch fish, nothing beats the single jig 90% of the time. Now notice here how I'm tugging the line. See, I closed the bail, and as soon as I close the bail, I'm going to give my line just a little tug to make sure that it's seated on the line roller. I've been getting a few DMs on people throwing wind knots using the light PE1 YGK braid that I recommend. And the thinner your line, the more line management is required to prevent wind knots. So making sure your braid is snug against the line roller after every cast is line management 101, and it becomes second nature very quickly. Okay, so here's the first keeper of the day. Gorgeous fish. You can tell she was sitting on some hard bottom by her coloration. Also note the way that fish came in, that sloshing on the surface while going in reverse. Just a classic way fluke can throw your hook if you slip up on your rod angles during the fight. Now as usual, I'm using my Steve 7.6 AGS paired to the Vanquish. I'll have links to everything I'm using in the description below, rods and reels for every budget, but again, if you wanted to treat yourself, nothing comes close to this combo for light fluke jigging. Alright, keeper number 2, and this one is exhibiting even more dramatic coloration than the first one. Very striking fish out of this section of beach, and you can tell they're coming off a hard structure and not sand. Now you can see here how much light that OG silver blade is throwing around in the full sun and clear water. I know we just launched the painted dirty jersey blades on the website, but so far I'm finding it very hard to put down the hammer nickel blade in the waters I've been fishing. Okay, we're back to a size we don't want to see, so it's time to make a move, but after I let this fish go, just notice, see, I'm testing the hook point, making sure the leader isn't chafed up. It's OCD, yes, but it also makes a difference. So here we're at a completely different beach, and this section is deep. I'm talking over 20 feet at the end of the cast. And here I'm not using the spinner blade anymore because the depth, current, and wind combined makes it a perfect spot to try out a different jigging technique, the free falling jig. Now this is something I go over in detail on the virtual lesson, chapter 2 to be exact, but basically instead of letting the jig swing on a tight line, I am popping it very high off the bottom and letting it fall vertically on controlled slack. And because I want maximum acceleration from the jig exploding off the bottom, the spinner blade is a bad fit for this jigging style. It will slow down your presentation, and in this case, speed is definitely the trigger I'm going for. So here you see how I'm jigging. I'm hitting the slack line. That's how I'm achieving the vertical height on the jig. Basically snatching that jerk shaft 6 to 8, even 10 feet off the bottom and just letting it drop. Now it's a much more erratic retrieve and is also much more technical. It requires more timing and line watching than the tight lining retrieve I use most of the time on shallower sloping beaches. And when I'm jigging those shallower beaches is when I'm using the spinner blade attachment 90% of the time at this point. Oh, fuck. Yeah, so this fish in less than a second managed to swallow the hook. Now here the best thing to do is to cut the line as short as possible and get that fish back in the water immediately. A shame since this fish was definitely over 21 inches and I would have liked a measurement on her. But since I'm not keeping any fish that day, the priority is to do as little harm as possible. So see right there. I set the hook less than a second and that fish managed to suck that jig down. That's just how fluke are. Larger fluke, especially keeper size fluke, they have no problem getting this down into their gullet in a split second. Okay, back to a shallower section of beach, and here's just a quick demo on how to attach the spinner blade. I take off a very short section of tail because I prefer as long and sinuous a profile as possible. But you can cut back much further and that will anchor your blade into a thicker, more secure part of the gulp. So basically you just take the screw lock and you try to center it to the tail of your jerk shad. And that's what it should look like. So see how much shallower it is here compared to the last spot. I'm on the bottom within a couple of seconds. Here I'm back to the usual tight lining pendulum swing of the jig. and hence the spinner blade goes back on for that flash and vibration I've grown to have such confidence in. So that's the final keeper for the trip. A solid day of fluking, but definitely a grind compared to the quad limit crankbait blitz of the earlier session. Okay, both the OG and painted blades are back in stock on the website, cookieandfishing.com, as well as the virtual lesson, which goes over both jigging techniques covered in this video in much more detail. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.